I was just looking at this. This is a wild lettuce plant here, and there's that little spittle bug in there. Do you see that little? There's a little bug in there. He's living in his own spit. Anyway, I'll put it back. We're here to talk about the mosses now. We just got done looking at algae. We're looking at the evolution of plants from the simplest on up. Algae is the one that colonized the little freshwater puddles and first left the ocean and became a plant on the continents themselves when we had to leave the water itself. And that plant here is a moss. And I'm sitting next to a log, a wet, sloppy, decomposing log with moss growing on it. Moss is dependent on having water for reproduction. Notice we know that moss is always short and low to the ground, isn't it? It's like a carpet. And that's because it can't conduct water up its stem. It hasn't figured that out. It's not vascular. It just lays like a sponge and absorbs the water by osmosis. Remember osmosis? Water goes from a crowded place to a less crowded place, right? Through a membrane. That's the moss. And the moss is using spores to recreate itself. The algae could just split in half or even bud off, couldn't it? Well, now we have a plant that can exchange genes with others, and they use a thing called a spore. And a spore is a little packet of DNA. And Miss Curtis, if you can get in on this, here's a cool little colony of moss here, and the green low bushy part, that is the photosynthetic part that is creating, the carbohydrates to make energy to grow the spores. And the spores are in these, see the little packet on a little stand there? Those little golden packets are full of spores. And each spore has got all the genetic information, male and female, to create more moss in another place. But for the spores to work, they need water. Now, one last thing. Again, a reminder, our next group is going to be a plant that has developed vascular tissue and can grow tall. The ferns and the scouring rushes or the horsetails. Flat to tall. This is our next story.